The last book that James Joyce wrote, Finnegans Wake, uh, is based on the kind of universal human experience of the fall, uh, of the fall from grace, the fall into knowledge, the fall from innocence into experience. But it's also the fall of Humpty Dumpty off the wall. It's also Tim Finnegan's fall in Finnegan's Wake that gives the title to the book. And Joyce spent better part of 17 years working on Finnegan's Wake. He was legally blind for most of that time, and it was very difficult work indeed. But he persevered, and the result is an extraordinary work. Now, this is very controversial. It also isn't for everybody, but it is Joyce's attempt to give us insight into everybody. And he does this in a very daring, highly controversial, unusual way. And that is by writing a book that attempts to give us a picture of the unconscious. The unconscious, not the conscious world of cities and breakfast and dogs and cats, but the unconscious world, the world that we encounter in dreams, the world we uh, encounter in all kinds of various ways, but which we can never bring into our consciousness. And because of that, Joyce said you can't use the cut and dried language that we communicate with usually, because that is the language of consciousness. So he invents his own language. Now, right away, you have to either go along with this or you have to say, not today. So we're going to go along with it, and I think you'll enjoy this and find it very rewarding. Uh, Ulysses is a book to be read. It is a book for the eye. And one of the joys in Ulysses is because you read, you put together events, people uh, from different parts of the book until they begin to have a coherence and make up a whole. Now, this is what we do in life. It's what we have to do in that novel. With Finnegans Wake, it is a book of the ear. It is a book you have to hear. You can hear it silently, of course, but it's even better if somebody can read it to you. And the the second thing about it is the book of the ear, and the language is an invention of Joyce. And to invent this, he used many of the languages of the world. Now, Joyce was fluent in half a dozen languages. Of course, he knew English, he knew some Irish, and we are only beginning the last decade to really appreciate this. Um, he knew French, he knew German, and I mean fluently, and of course he knew Italian. In fact, the Joyce family spoke Italian at home, and both his children have Italian names, Giorgio and Lucia. Uh, so he was fluent in those. He often taught in those languages. He taught for Berlitz. He taught English to the French. He taught English to the Italians. He taught English to the Germans, particularly in Switzerland. Uh, but he also knew many other languages, not well, but he had a smattering of them. He certainly knew Hungarian, and you will find in Finnegans Wake puns in Hungarian, which is quite an assignment, believe me. Uh, and and you will find also that Hungarian words are combined with English words in a very interesting way. But then so many of the words are combined in Finnegans Wake. Well, enough of that. Why don't we listen to it? And we've got a real treat. And I'll let I'll let Jim Knight introduce himself and the selection that he's going to read from. And here he is. Here's Jim.